All right, so I wanted to add some functionality to our devise gem, and they have a bunch of wikis. They have a wiki that answers a bunch of questions on their documentation page here. So I just want to show you some of the things that you can do. One of them is how to add an admin role. Doesn't that make sense, right? So there's a lot of nice things in here that people have asked. And you can click on that and modify how the users table works. All right? And they tell you how we can create some administrative type of users here. All right? So I'm going to be doing this kind of a concept, adding an admin attribute to the users table. And at the same time, I'm going to add some more information, like their first name and last name, just to show you how we can do all that in one piece of code here. All right, so to do that, we right-click, say New Generator. We want to run a migration, is all we want. And we're going to call this something useful, like add fields to users. And the first field we want is an admin, and we're going to make that a Boolean. Then we're going to add the first name, and we want that to be what type? String. And we're going to add the last name and make that to be of type string. So it's going to add 3 new fields to my users table, and all this does is create the migration file, right? So admin is a Boolean, first name is a string, last name is a string. And naming this with an add here, Rails takes this into account as it's creating the migration file.
So it automatically splits it up into keywords.
Yeah. Yes, based on the camel casing, yes, absolutely. So it says, okay, you wanted to do an add, so we're going to do an add column to the users table. The column name is going to be admin, and it's going to be Boolean type, and same with the rest of these here. So once I create my migration, what do I do with it? I migrate it. db migrate, run. This actually adds or modifies the table on the disk and the database, and add some additional columns. So it added 3 new columns here. So let's go look at this, the console. This is really a useful tool. We'll run the Rails console. And let's look at the users now. User table, sorry. That's the user table, and it should have some additional fields here at the end. So I've got my 3 new fields at the end of the structure of my user table. So I could say A equals user.first. That gives me the first record. I only have one, right? If I say user.count, I have 1 record. So this is my 1 record, and the data at the end is all nil, right? So how do I change that and save that to the database? Ideally, a lot of people do not have a GUI interface through the browser to change somebody to be an administrator because it's a security risk. If anybody could get to that page, then they could set anybody to be an admin, right? So a lot of, even big name companies, they're going to go into the console like this, change one person to be an admin. And how would we do that? Well, we have our A guy. A is me. A.admin equals true. Now he's an admin. And I might as well set my first name and my last name. And then how do I save it to the database? I have to actually execute this and save it back to the database. Save, all right? Bang, does the SQL, updates it, sets these three variables for me, and now I can say a.admin. And it also gives me these type of methods. Is A an admin with a question mark? Yes, he is. So it makes it nicer in my programming statements. If user.admin question mark, then you could do something, right? So any questions on that? I would not add any GUI to this. Don't let anybody change this from the web. Do it in the console. I'm a firm believer of that.
What was the strength that you set your object
I said A equals user.first. Because if I say user.all, I get an array of user objects. And I happen to have only one. So first says, get me the first record in my user table. And in this case, I could do the same thing and say user.last happens to be the same person. Nice, eh? There is no user zero. Because it's really not an array. It's an active record relation. See this relation? Where'd it go? It's an active record relation array. So you can't say user sub 0. It's not really an array. User.find record number 4. You do a select statement. It's in the database. You have to know the record number if you want to do that. Or user.where last name is Jones. That gives me the same thing. So I can search, I can select data using all of these active relation type things.
That would have ruined the whole Where's Waldo series.
Where's Waldo? Find Waldo, please. Done. Next. So I can use all of these active relation methods that we talked about before. Limit, offset, where, select, and it creates that SQL statement for me. Select users.star from users where users.last name equals Jones. SQL-y stuff, that's right. And I don't have to write that code. And that's okay. That's okay with me. All right, any questions on what we've done so far? So all we've done is add additional columns to the database. I've filled those in for my one user that I have registered. Now, if anybody else registers, there's no way from the form for them to set the administrator, right? They cannot do that. So it's pretty safe. Let's go and start to add some rejections around here. All right, we added in our controller. Remember in our controller, we added this before filter. And this authenticate, it's going to force somebody to be authenticated. But it's not quite enough to keep, because any registered user is an authenticated user, right?
So can you authenticate _admin?
So what we can do is in this controller, we can add a new private method, and we'll call it just authenticate. No, that's too close to what they have, isn't it? No, they have authenticate users. So we'll call it authenticate. And what we will do is make this more of a compound system. So we're going to say something like authenticate user, bang, and what? Our current user, right? Current user dot admin is true, right? So that is a Boolean expression by itself. if the user is authenticated and he's an admin, then this is going to return true. Otherwise, if either of these are false, it's going to return false. Okay, and so true and false goes to a false.
And so, yeah,
So then I change my before filter just to call authenticate instead. Does that make sense? So I've changed that method. Every method on this page is going to call this authenticate method that I just wrote, except for these two methods, the index and the show page, because we don't care about those, right?
The only thing they're going to be able to see is the index and show page.
Right. If they try anything else, we smack them, right? So let's go to my movies page. I can't speak anymore. Come on. Yay. Wow, really? Really? Yay.
You left it open. Come on, man.
Wow. Son of a Gutterson. Where's my program, Brandon? Huh? 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 You should have admin access. You guys should be able to. Can't you see the C drive? Yeah. You might not get into that folder, though. That's the problem. But you should be able to see the C drive, or you can't write Ruby. So that's not right. Yeah. No, I was thinking of writing a program that opened a tab, clicked on this link, clicked on this link, clicked on this link, hit OK, 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 close the tab.
Then you still got to watch it. And say,
Yeah, but still, I don't have to do it. All right, so if I try to go and edit this, it lets me. Why? Because I thought, oh, I'm on the wrong page.
You're in PHP.
Well done, sir.
Next time you do that, you should use different templates for each.
I know. I was thinking it'd be easier. I wouldn't have to worry about it, right? But no. All right, so I can go to my, I'm logged in, and I'm logged in as Dave, so this should let me edit. Except,
Just click on you made links out of the other side.
I can go edit this way, edit. And so I can log in and edit. I'm logged in. All right, so let's try another user. Let's go to Firefox and make this guy my, and what's nice is I don't have to set a proxy on this one. I can go to here and say edit, and it says, wait a minute, I don't know you. So I first have to log in, and I secondly have to have a user that's an admin. So let's create a new user here.
You'd have to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sign in as
Thank you.
somebody else.
That's what I meant to do.
We understand how sites work.
Yeah, good. All right, so now it's letting me edit, which it should not. So let's go back and figure out why. So blog. Nope, I'm not in blogs. What am I in? Movies. I don't even have a link for that. All right, it's still letting me edit, so I have a problem. Let's go look in our console. And since I've added some things, I'm going to reload it with an exclamation point and get the users again. I'll get the last user, which is my second guy. And is a.admin true? No, he's false.
Would you have to add
It is here.
Sure is.
Should authenticate be a symbol?
It is. Yes, it should be a symbol.
Okay.
That's going to call this method here.
Do you need the bang after authenticate user?
Yeah, that's what Devise has. That's the method that they wanted us to use.
Doesn't that return true if they're not authenticated? Will it return
No, that's just making it permanent.
Yeah, it returns true if they're authenticated, yes. So let's
Seems backwards to me.
let's debug that. And to do that, though, I have to log out. Force a
Have you tried restarting the server? That might actually.
yeah, right. Let's debug it, though. Oh, I ran the. I need to debug the development. Here we go. We're going to go back to movies. And it shows I'm not logged in. Remember, we edited that yesterday. I can go to one of these guys, click on edit, and it should break for me. Good. All right, at this point, we can look at some things. There should be no current user is nil. All right, so that's good. Then authenticate user is going to be called first. Well, I don't want to go through all of this stuff. This is going into the authenticate method. There's a lot of code in there, right? So we don't want to get into any of that stuff.
Can you just on your watches show with that authenticate?
So it comes back to here, and we can sign in.
Did the right thing that time.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten to the second part yet. So it came back to here. It's back to here, authenticate user, and now my current user is something. And I should be able to say something like current user.admin is false. So it should cause this to go back and not display anything, right?
Force it on the login page. That's what it's when you click edit on the last
Oops, I
page,
didn't hit go.
force it isn't.
I think it's just set to stay on.
So it goes back to the home. Yeah, it's working this time. And probably because I restarted the server, right? So that's very possible. So go back to edit, go back, and I'm able to edit though. So there's
So as long as you're signed in, it works, but if you're not signed in, it doesn't work.
That's got to be returning true for authenticate user.
yeah. So let's go look at their code because that must have changed. This is something that if current user is not set yet, if they're not logged in, then this is a way of doing like a try catch. So we could change that. I mean, that's something I have in my notes anyway. I could say current user dot try and admin. with a question mark. All right, so that's going to basically do a try-catch around that. But I don't think that was the problem.
Could you shorten it, like your first the authenticated user, just to admin? Because a non-authenticated user would be an admin.
Well, I have to force the authentication to happen at some point. I have to force them to do an authentication. If they're not logged in, this shows the form, lets them log in. This handles all of that case here. So let's just try it with this try. Maybe that caused some of the problem. So we have to log out again. Go to /movies. I probably should fix my edit. Forces me to log in. Goes back to here again. My current user admin is false. And it still lets me edit. So I've got something wrong here. And I'm not sure what that is. So let's move on. I'll figure that out. Let's use some of these new properties that I added to display things differently. So if I go to my just /movies, I don't even want to display the link that says edit or delete, right? Edit or destroy. I don't want to display these at all.
If you had actually tried to update it and hit update,
It might have. It might have had that problem, yeah. You're right. No, it's still it's still letting me. And I'm the non-admin guy. So I've got something wrong there. So if I were to modify this page, my movies page, to not have those links, what would I modify? The index, where is that? Okay, so there's my movie controller. It's in the view itself. I would not want to display these two, right? If I only want to display these if current user is an admin. So I'm going to put an if statement around these. And indent it because it's code. And now these links should only show up if this statement is true. All right, so let's go look at it in this page. This is my guy that is not administrative. And they're gone. Isn't that nice?
Well, that's really weird.
So that's working. It's just my authenticate edit. It's not working. So I've got some problem with that. But so all I have to do, maybe I don't want to display the price, the cost of my product, right? You wouldn't want to display that. So you'd add another if statement around that, one of those particular fields.
You do the same thing up there for the
Yeah.
QTH.
Sure. If you want it to be nice looking, right? So I only want to display 2 header columns if they're an admin. So that matches my table. Okay, good. And now it should look better anyway. Okay, a little better. All right, does that make sense? So I can utilize that type of a construct anywhere in my code, in my views, to display stuff or not display stuff. All right, does that make sense? All right, we're out of time. I'm going to have to figure out what that bug is, and I'll try to fix that. It's likely a Rails 4 thing that's screwing me up. So, because this all used to work. So.
It's good you have that to blame it.
Exactly. I got to have something to blame it on. All right, we'll see you tomorrow then.
When you